Okay. Good morning, everyone. This is Sebastiano Toffaletti at the SME Safety. Welcome to the 2022 SBS Forum for PPE and Textile Care. This forum is about standardization and SMEs in the PPE, personal protective equipment sector. And today, the topic of this year is dual and multi-use of the personal protective equipment. We're going to be together between now, 10 o'clock, and 1 p.m. So hopefully we're going to have a lively discussion of about 3 hours with speakers and an audience. I will moderate at least the first session, and I'm starting now to invite our guests. To start with, I'd like to give the floor to Maitana Barria, who's the Secretary General of SBS. So for a welcome and introduction to our event today. Maitane, the floor is yours. Maybe you can unmute yourself.
Yeah, thank you, Sebastiano, and good morning also from my side. So I also want to welcome you to this forum on behalf of SBS, that is the organization representing the interest of European SMEs in standardization. As Sebastiano mentioned, this year, the forum is looking at an important and also, I would say, difficult topic for SMEs. We have to admit that products are becoming increasingly complex. One of the reasons for this is that the market is demanding more and more smarter and connected products on the one hand. This is, for example, the case of smart personal protective equipment, that includes interconnected sensors that, of course, offer many advantages and are able to react to the existing risks and the environment, and also provide in this way with increased safety, protection, and comfort to workers. So this is what we have on the one side regarding complexity, but at the same time, as mentioned by Sebastiano, we also have some products that might be intended to be used both as personal protective equipment, as for example, medical devices. I think we all have in mind, for example, the case of masks that are used by surgeons during an operation, but it can also be designed as a filtering respiratory device to protect the user against viruses or other infective agents, for example. So I think the development of new multipurpose products and services is actually a good thing. It can help also the resilience of the sector and of the European economy. But we will be seeing today that this also brings a series of challenges for SMEs. Firstly, there is the added complexity and cost of compliance, especially for small companies. We see that they face new legislation and the fact that they need to go through multiple conformity assessment procedures that have not been used previously, or let's say that have previously been irrelevant to their main business. And this is also translated in an increase in documentation, certification, and compliance costs in general, which can hamper the placement or make difficult the placement of these products in the market and make it more expensive as well. And the second challenge, of course, is also the fact that SMEs are not always equipped with the right tools and skills to manage the intricacies of complex product development, especially when we are talking, for example, about smart and connected products. So if we look at the issue of skills, I think it is important to consider also that the EU strategy for sustainable circular textiles is there, and also has as one of its objectives the development of skills needed for the green and digital transition in the textile sector. This is something that is welcome. The twin transition actually constitutes a huge challenge, but also an opportunity to the sector, and it's important that we can equip the sector, SMEs, with the skills that are needed, and also to be able to benefit from the green and digital transition. And European standardization for sure is also important in relation to this context and the issue of complex products, because the standards play an essential role in helping SMEs to comply with existing legal requirements, and also are also the basis for compliance assessment procedures. This is why it is important that standards also evolve to reflect the challenges and also the needs of SMEs. This is precisely the role of SBS, Small Business Standards. I mean, we are there to represent and defend the interest of SMEs in standardization, both at the European and the international level. And we are there to voice the needs of SMEs and ensure that the standards support and do not create obstacles to them. One of the main things is that we do in this context is to appoint experts to technical committees, but we also organize events and provide a platform like the one today in order to be able to discuss with SMEs and other stakeholders about the needs of SMEs, the challenges, the complexity, and also how this needs to be reflected regarding standardization. So, we will be discussing this today. We will be discussing how standardization can help SMEs to address the challenges I mentioned. Currently, when you have products with a double or combined functionality, you might need to apply two different sets of standards to ensure it complies with different sets of possible applicable regulations. Can be the case, for example, of mask, medical devices, and PPE regulation. But if we have more and more interconnected products in the market, we will also be adding the dimension, for example, of artificial intelligence. And I'm sure you all know that there is currently a new AI Act and other applicable legislation like the Radio Equipment Directive. So this is indeed complex for SMEs to manage. So if we want to actually help SMEs and also to ensure that we have competitive and innovative products in the market, we need to ensure that companies do not need to go through multiple standards, and it becomes easier to go through combined conformity assessment procedures. And for this, it is essential that we have a dialogue with the standards bodies, the relevant commission services, SMEs, and the private sector in general to try to collaborate and see together how we can shape the standards, conformity assessment procedures, so that this is indeed easier for SMEs. Let me just finish by highlighting again, I think this is quite obvious, but it's important to remind that European SMEs are essential and are essential force for innovation in Europe. They are essential as well if we want to achieve the objectives of the green and digital transition. And it's important that we ensure that there is a SME vibrant ecosystem, and we consider their needs in standardization and also in relation to relevant legislation and policies in order to achieve our common European goals. So I think I will leave it there, Sebastiano. Just let me finish by thanking once more the participants for being here today to discuss this important topic. And I'm confident that with the speakers that are around the table today, we will be having very interesting discussions.
Excellent. Thank you, Maitane, for helping us kick off the conversation with your remarks. There are some comments on the chat, and that reminds me to inform you that we would like to have a lively discussion with everyone in not just the speakers, but also the participants, and later is going to be a Q&A session. So glad to hear the feedback of everyone. If you want to intervene, you can either raise your hand using the function, or just write in the chat that you are raising your hand. So we will give you the floor when it is the time. With that, we go into the first of our two panels, which I'm going to moderate. The second one is going to be moderated by my colleague Andreas Schumacher of DTV. DTV is, of course, the other co-organizer of this event, together with the SME Safety on behalf of SBS. But to start with, in the first panel, as you know, we're going to have three people with us, three speakers. Ivan, let me introduce them to you. Ivan Arias Roldan from the European Commission, Pierpaolo Zani, CEO of BLS, his company in Italy, and president of SME Safety. And third, we're going to have Jörg Koopman, CEO of Cobra. Each of them are going to have a few minutes for a short introduction. The topic of this panel, as we said, is about the additional complexity that is coming on the companies. We know we have had COVID pandemic, a war in Ukraine, an energy crisis, a supply chain crisis. Companies, especially SMEs nowadays, are more and more pushed to become more resilient, to go into sustainable green transition and digital transition. All of this, of course, has consequences on the standards, on the legislation, and the challenges they have to face. So there is a regulatory aspect and there is a market aspect, which is really putting our SMEs a little bit under stress, I would say. So to start with, perhaps I'd like to give the floor to Ivan Arias Roldan. Ivan is the key person in the European Commission in charge of the PPE sector. He works in DG GROW. So Ivan, you were still there with us. If you can unmute yourself, you have a few minutes, so you can please tell us a little bit more what is the perspective of the Commission on this sector, in particular on SMEs, and given especially the topic of this panel, so the complexity and the multi-use that comes to the companies.
Thank you very much, Sebastiano. As Sebastiano said, I'm the desk officer for the PPE regulation. I joined the Commission in October 2019 and started and been appointed as desk officer for PPE in July 2020, in the middle of the pandemic. So you can imagine how difficult it was. A very deep and quick immersion in the PPE sector because of the FFP masks, as you can imagine. So and yeah, precisely the masks are one of these examples of possible products that could be of dual use, that we say. First of all, let me share one website which is interesting, which I'm sure that you will already know, which is, let me see, this one. So this is the European Commission website for the CE marking. And there in the CE marking website, you will see one part which is for manufacturers. There you will see the basic six steps for manufacturers to start thinking about the CE conformity. And there you will see here, as a first step, identify the applicable directives and harmonize standards. So this is the very first step that all the manufacturers have to think of when dealing with their products. And when we think about dual use or multi-use, we're thinking about the applicable directives for specific products, and in this case, PPE is one of the specific product groups. You see here down there, PPE, personal protective equipment, and there you will see the link for the personal protective equipment web page and the regulation and etc. But there, so when we think about dual use or multi-use, we think about different product legislation applying to the same product. And this could be the case in PP, more specifically for products that are also medical devices and need to comply with the medical devices regulation. So, for example, masks, gloves, and gowns. But there could be also another products, like for example, life jackets that have small gas cylinders that need to comply probably with the pressure equipment directive, or we may have these smart garments, as Maitane said, that may have any additional electronic devices and need to comply with radio equipment directive or electromagnetic compatibility. So these are these kind of products that could be of different use. In addition to that, as Maitan introduced, there could be other directives that are that could affect on a horizontal side to all product categories in with the CE marking. So not only the personal protective equipment can be need to be sustainable according to the future sustainability eco directive eco regulation, and also those smart governments dealing with some data may need to also comply with the Data Act, or if this personal protective equipment will add some artificial intelligence systems, will need to comply with the requirements of the AI regulation, the future AI regulation. So these are these kind of things that we have to discuss. We are discussing here, and it's we understand from the Commission side. And I will stop sharing this. I want to see you, otherwise I will not see you. How do I stop sharing this? Share, disable the screen share. Okay, now I see you. So I'm we understand the increasing complexity of requirements for products in the market, especially for SMEs, and it's true that it's necessary to simplify this kind of thing. So how, but this should be done step by step. So how, what is the first step that I think that is very interesting, and more notably in the context of this forum, are the standards. When we introduce these additional requirements in the same standard, this will help the life of manufacturers, especially those from SMEs that have less money and have less resources to deal with this kind of problems. So one the main principal solution right now would be this. In this sense, we are, for example, we have started working, and the representatives here of SBS that were in the last webinar with Sen about these dual use products, we know that we are working already. Sen is working, the technical committee and the request of the Commission for a new standard for respiratory protective equipment for against infective agents, which would like to introduce also not only the compliance according to the PPE regulation, also according to the medical devices regulation in the same standard. So standards give us a possibility to comply at the same time with different product specific legislations. There could be different annexes where they indicate the compliance with the different clauses of the standard and the essential health and safety requirement in the respective EU legislation. So this is one of the first steps that needs to be done. whenever we have more products, more complex products in the market, we could revise the standard to add additional conformity, presumption of conformity clauses in the standards to ease the life of the users. Another thing is that for the conformity assessment, I understand that there will be cases that maybe not a single notified body can perform the conformity assessment against different regulatory frameworks, product safety legislation. So it would be interesting when we identify those cases to highlight it and try to find or try to encourage notifying authorities to notify bodies also to cover also different sectorial legislation that could apply for one product. It could happen that not a single notified body has the competence to perform the conformity assessment of a single product because they can only perform the competence for PPE and not for medical devices, for example. So I understand that there could appear additional costs for companies with regards to the conformity assessment. So it would be necessary also to try to get this notification for different sectoral legislations for notified bodies. In any case, I want to focus that, highlight that the central piece of legislation for PPE is the PPE regulation. So then whenever the products become more complex, you need to think about other applicable directives like medical device regulation, radio equipment directive. And in addition, for these new horizontal directives like the eco-design regulation and the Data Act, they cannot add requirements for product safety of the PPE itself. So the AI regulation will only indicate essential requirements for the AI system, which then will need to be, of course, included in the conformity assessment of the product. The Data Act will add some requirements for the management of the data. That if your PPE by any chance is managing some data, you will be subject to the Data Act. But the safety of the PPE itself will be managed by the PPE regulation. Okay. And yeah, the same for the eco-design regulation. The eco-design regulation will add some requirements for the sustainability of the products. Okay, but in this case, this regulation cannot add itself. Cannot impose itself additional requirements to the PPE regulation unless they are indicated in a separated delegated act, which still does not exist because the regulation is still a proposal. So after the proposal, if at some point there will come up a PPE, a delegated act under the co-design proposal, the regulation for PPE products. This has not yet happened. It will happen most probably in the future, but it's not still the case. So far, the co-design directive, the co-design proposal will not add any additional requirements. In any case, for your information, we have discussed already this in the past, especially with the masks about the sustainability of the PPE products. And ECOS, there is another association dealing with sustainability aspects of the products. They are involved in the committees in SEN committees in order to include also to take into account the sustainability aspects of the product. So these also the taking adding these aspects in the standards will also help users and SMEs to take into account these aspects. Okay. Well, I think I have spoken too much, Sebastiano. I give the floor to you back and to introduce the next speaker, and then we will have a more
Yes.
detailed discussion.
Thank you. Yes, Thank you, Ivan. No, you haven't spoken too much. I think you presented the point of view of the Commission, and I think it's always good for us to know what your point of view is. To move on, introducing the next speaker, if he is ready, I wanted to ask Jörg Koopman to take the floor now, because it's going to bring a little bit of another perspective on the table, which is actually the perspective of a technology company that is very much working with the PPE and textile industry. He is the co-founder of a software company called Cobra, and he himself is an expert in RFID, radio frequency technology, which is something very much used for the traceability of products, including textile and PPE, textile care and PPE. So, I think he has a very good perspective that can add, can help us understand what is actually all of this complexity which is coming, that I don't think we can any longer consider a PPE or a textile care product only that. As you also heard from Ivan, there are more and more things coming, and in the world we live now, every product is going to be, probably is going to be connected to the cloud, probably it will have to have sustainability requirements, and so on and so forth. So there is going to be an increased complexity on the products, and the world we are going to is going to be much more complex than the world we live on today. So, Jörg, I know you have also a few slides that you wanted to present, so please unmute yourself, and the floor is yours. But you are still muted.
I hope now it's better.
Now it's better.
Okay, thank you, Sebastiano, and good morning together. Yeah, we are a software development company, and I'd like to share some slides to show you how we see the complexity in garments and in textile industry and in PPE also. And I hope you can see it now.
Yes, you should be able to share your screen. Yes, we see it.
Okay. So just a short introduction who we are. We are founded in 1995, and the name is given by Mr. Brown and me. So that is the background of Cobra. We are seated in Ferl in Germany, and right now we had 6 permanent employees in here, and they are all experts in item identification, in storing data, and in communicate data based on standards. And we are coming from the textile industry as we started, market research and many logistic themes. And after 2005, we entered the textile service providers. And there we found the multi-usable textiles you will see just later on. So the complexity is shown with the first slide in here. So all items have to be produced. We see the suppliers, the manufacturers all over the world. And there are data and information given with the process of manufacturing, which have to be stored in a central way so that everybody could check if these information is compliant to the given standards. And so we have source tagging. We can have to check if the identification media is fine, and so on. And from there, it goes, for example, to container freight centers, and from there to distribution centers. And in the normal retailers way, we entered the store, and then garments and textiles are given to the end user, and it's fine. Single use, single way. This is easy. But all in this, many data and information are coming up. Am I with the right products and the right components? And do I have all the items in time at the right place? Logistic questions. So all about inventory questions. And in addition, in multi-use, we see in laundries, for example. Next slide. Come on. And sorry for German inside. We have a laundry, and their textiles are in a circle. They're coming again and again and again. And there you have other questions, more questions. How are they washed? With what chemicals are they washed? With what parameters is the service done? When had it been done? Had it been done always? And so on. And we built solutions to take these data and make information on this on item level. We do not speak only on article, on the mask. We see that shirt, this one, and we can go back to the whole life history of each garment with this, all in the circle of life. And we use standards for this. I give you some examples. So you can localize where you take data by a GLN, a global location number. Each company in the world could have an unique location number. And with this, you can identify, okay, this is a manufacturer, this is a company for delivering, or it's a distribution center or a store, or the laundry. And in this, you can say where is what done with the garment. You can have the place of goods incoming, goods exit, the laundry machines, and so on. And then it goes to the identification. And there we assist the DTV and the Hohenstein to use standards like the GTIN. The GTIN is a global trade item number, which identifies each product as an article. If you go shopping and you take a water, for you it's totally normal to place it on the cashier desk, and the system knows, oh yes, it's water and it takes that amount of money. And this is taken to the garments also. So you have a shirt with specific data behind, what components, what ingredients, and so on. And this is taken to the GTIN. And the individual history of this shirt, when was it manufactured, how often had it been washed, with what chemicals, and so on, is taken to the SGTIN. So in here, we have a serialized GTIN, and this could be identified by a barcode or by RFID. And the main point of use right now is RFID, because we have the possibility of bulk reading and automatic detection and so on. Additional standards are given and could be handled by laundries and others for assets, fixed or returnable assets, and all relevant objects inside the business. And all of this could be given to a data pool, and this is handled by the EPCIS system, which is defined by EPC Global. And to give you the idea, if you speak about complexity, if you speak about standards, if you want to know what is behind a smart garment, then you have to speak about communication. So we need the same vocabulary, we need the same rules to exchange information. And this is also given by worldwide standards in EPCIS, electronic product code information services, where you can handle article related information, you all know this. You can place orders, shipping notifications, exchange of invoices, and so on in standardized way, or you could handle item-related information, how often washed, or what was, when, in which place, in which process, at what place. And with this, you can give the whole life of a product and follow him and have a documented history to this. For example, in EPCIS version 1, we had till 2 years ago, it was mainly inventory driven. Where are my goods? Are we on the right time scale? All these questions could be handled and communicate between all the partners in the supply chain, the value chain. So you started to give a manufacturing order to your supplier. The supplier says, okay, I'm fine with production and I'm ready for quality checks, or we just pack it. We can give it to the carrier. He takes the goods, for example, to the ship in the container, or the ship has coming to Hamburg and the container was unloaded and customers cleared, so the goods are available. All this was in EPCIS version 1 given, and we have a big goal in optimized transparency and get better amount of items in the inventories. But with version 2, and this was taken out 2 years ago, we have in addition the possibility to handle process parameters with it. So if you would like to know how the equipment of firefighters had been decontaminated, in what washing cycle, you can handle this now, because you can give pressure, temperature, chemicals used with it to the information you have to the item right now with version 1. And with version 2, we come to the point that we have to store it in EPCRS and can handle it as like a digital product pass. And this we need in the future more and more. So why standards? We optimize the transparency, and all players behind my supply chain or along my value chain can communicate with each other and low down the complexity. So not a fax or a mail or a paper writing to exchange data. Take standards, they are faster, they are clear, and they are with RFID timely right now. If you take a read with RFID, this could be handled directly to all the others which are interested in or needs the information, and not we write it on paper, lay the paper back, and in 2 days we work on that paper and then we inform all the other parties. Now we are timely in real life, in real time. Yeah, with RFID, we go around since 2005 and work out some solutions in 2009. We got the award for the best RFID software ever done in US, given from the RFID journal, sorry. The jury was the MIT and the Harvard University. If you have any questions in this, yeah, please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you, Jörg. I think that was a dive into, for some of us, a parallel world, but indeed with a lot of concrete applications for companies. I see that Andreas already has a question. Andreas, would you like to shoot it now, or do you prefer to wait until we do the first round?
Yeah, maybe I give it a try now, because I thank you, Jörg Koopman, for this presentation. I was just, when I thought about the standards, we were talking about the standards that are underlying the all these digital help for companies to bring their products on the market and to follow the items during the supply chains. I was wondering, because Ivan told us there will be coming up for the PPE industry, still the PPE regulation will be the one, but also there will be coming up new requirements from other regulations like the maybe medical device regulation or eco-design or digital product passport. So when I think about all this supply chains of, for example, PPE garments like textiles starting with the production of the yarns up to the end product which you have then, I think this will be quite a challenge to have all the data coming along that are necessary to comply, to be conform in conformity with all the regulations, but have to come from the complete supply chain up to the first step. Is that actually handled? How can that be handled, especially by SMEs? Do you see any solution for that challenge? That would be my question.
You have nearby the same situation in normal textile industry. In addition, you have PPE regulations on what is allowed to use and how to handle. Not to go more in detail, but if I have an SME, I gave a production order with a clear information what is to be produced in what regulations, and the manufacturer can handle back this information to me and store it by himself under the key of my production order, and all items will made identifiable with the production. So backwards, you always have the situation that if you identify an item, you scan it by barcode or you read it by RFID, it is unique on the world, and you can come back with the so-called item of things. So please see, Andreas, inside the for example, firefighter's uniform, you have the information who brought it to the market, what is the article in this, and what is the serial number. And with this three informations, you can come back to the information database. Where is it stored? What article? And the item number can come back to the charge. Sorry, hope it's fine. Where is it manufactured? When? With which accessories, and so on.
Yeah, but the question is, you're already talking about the item, but the item is actually produced by a complete supply chain. Like you have a serial of steps to have this item. There are several things attached to this item, like zippers or anything else.
Yes.
The yarn question: what chemicals are used for the production of the fabric, of the yarn, and so on. All this information that is going way before once you have this single product, and that is something I have no clue how that could be handled, because some of these information have to be finally available for CE marking and for being conform with some regulations. So those companies that put these products on the market would need these kind of information from way along the supply chain. So that is something I find quite challenging for SMEs to do that. But could digitization actually also help with that? And what would be the system?
Yes, see it like a pyramid of information. So the laundry takes the buyer, the user of the firefighter uniform or the PPE device, takes it, and all the design information is on the level of the dealer of the wholesale, for example. And the manufacturing data, what zip, where does it come from, and all other ingredients in this is on the production layer. And everybody stores his information, and if it's necessary to get a whole view to the product, you can collect this. So as I am a laundry, I ask my dealer for the information on the article level, and if I have a problem with one of my items, one of my articles, I can go back to the production level and ask the producer, what have you done? When was it produced, with what ingredients, and so on. So we can come back and see the parallel in food industry. There it's normal if you go to a shop and take a piece of meat, that you can come back to the producer, to the farm where the cow or the pig was born. And the same we can handle with all the data in garment industry and textile industry.
Okay, I hope that answers the question of Andreas, and I think it's
hope so.
Quite interesting to hear that, because if I connect with what Ivan said before and what the role of the Commission is, I think what Jörg described is essentially the digital product passport already happening. And the digital product passport, we know it's a new legislative initiative by the Commission. So perhaps I think the message for Ivan and his colleagues in the Commission is to say, okay, what we wanted to do in a legislative way is already possible in the market, possible through the use of technology and the use of standards, which offer, the interoperability framework and the specifications so that everyone understands in a unique way in the market globally. The lesson is perhaps to, not reinvent the wheel, but build on what is already there, existing, what the companies, at least some of them are already using, rather than, as sometimes we tend to do, because we don't know what's really on the market. And so we see sometimes this tendency to regulate without understanding really the market conditions, and then, create more complexity than what is actually needed. But okay, I don't want to dig into that too much now, because we have the Q&A, so we can discuss it. I wanted also to introduce the third of our speakers for the first panel, Pierpaolo Zani, CEO of BLS, which is an Italian company, very well known in Italy, at least as a producer of PPE, especially respiratory masks. Pierpaolo is also the president of SME Safety, but I think it's interesting to have him more as an entrepreneur today, someone in the field that can tell his story of what he sees, what has happened during the pandemic crisis, what is the future of his products in terms also of sustainability, digitalization, and so on. So Pierpaolo, you can unmute yourself if you are still muted, and please take the floor.
Ciao Sebastiano, thanks. Hello to everyone. Thanks a lot for this invitation. It's a pleasure to share a little bit some ideas. I like the approach of this forum, of this forum, that is more, it's a little bit of brainstorm. I feel it as a little bit brainstorming, and I like this kind of approach. Well, yes, we are a company 100% specialized in respiratory protection product. We have a 50 years old history in all respiratory protection product. We was founded a company specialized in disposable mask. And yes, about COVID, I want to talk later a bit, but I don't want to spend a lot of words about that. But I want to present a couple of projects that we are doing in this kind of multi-use product. As I told you, we are a company specialized in respiratory protection product. We have 3 manufacturing plants, 2 in Italy and 1 in Spain. We export out of Italy the majority of our production, and we have different branch office all over Europe, and one in Brazil. Actually, I'm in Brazil now for an important safety show here in Sao Paulo. We are already working, we manufacture from disposable half mask, full face mask, and PAPRs. We mainly operate in 3, but I can see also 4 different industries. The first one is safety industry. So I'm talking about all kind of industry. Another important field is medical. And so we already know the double use. So we already have products that are PPE plus medical devices. And this kind of aspect is not easy to manage, mainly for production aspect, because the medical device need a certain absolutely clean environment that we already had, because we have this kind of culture inside, but it's not so easy to do in the right way. And also we have to underline that it's not easy to be controlled by the authorities, because the other important issue, and now I'm back to COVID, that came out during COVID was that arrived in the market every kind of bad products. During COVID was, may I say in a very drastic way, if you respect the rules, especially in the second part of COVID, when the market were over, the offer was very high. At that period, if you respect the rules, you have probably less opportunity than the massive and very bad product that arrived in the market. So this aspect about the control of the product is also something that could be in this discussion, because the digitalization, may I say even the blockchain, can arrive to make a guarantee on the product. Probably the disposable is just a part, but for example, and now I'm talking about our experience with our RFID and so on. In the industry, this kind of aspect can be very, very important. So one aspect was related again to the control of the market. The other business that where we work is military, so mainly military law enforcement, that is more correct. So police application, and then the last one that we launched before COVID was a external startup with Polytechnic of Milano, with the target to create an IoT mask. This IoT mask, the company is named Narvalo. You can see the website, narvalo.design. This device has the purpose to be used in the cities with high polluted, and that this electronic valve can monitor your performances in breathing. So we can monitor with a sensor of pressure. We can monitor the use of the mask, and how I move myself and my breath, how I can control the breath, and also consequently my health. We are taking this valve and we are putting in the B2B business. So this is another experience that I want to bring on this table, and we are bringing this electronic valve in the industry, and the feedback is absolutely very good. The point is that first of all, there is an aspect of comfort, because this electronic valve take out the air from inside of the mask, so they reduce a lot the wet and hot sensation. One of the other aspects that we are pushing, and I'm happy to have here some authorities like the European community, is the element of with this valve, the safety manager can monitor that the employees is really using the mask. Here is coming a great conflict between unions, in the safety manager that has his own industry. So this kind of regulation about the data is something very critical. And to be honest, we are testing this valve in very big industries. May I say that only the big industries, is big factories, or big companies are ready to accept this kind of product. By other side, in the big companies, the fight between unions and the companies are very high. So a sort of regulation to manage the data and to let the company use the data, it's absolutely very important. Also because if you take the example of fit test, for example, fit test is something very important for the safety industry, and it's now mandatory in a lot of countries. But fit test is managing data again, and there are companies that are not open to share this data also with the producer. And for the producer in an economy of platform, it's absolutely important to have data to increase our, to improve our product. So this is another aspect. The other two things that I want to go quickly are the RFID on the product. We already have a couple of product disposable masks with RFID. The aspect of cost, it's really, I mean, low. Also in this case, which kind of industries of companies are interested and ready to invest on this kind of aspect? Probably one of the way in Italy there is a way to deduct some taxation if you give advanced product to your employees for safety. This could be a way. So the policymaker, may I say the example of the electric cars? The electric cars cost a lot of money if I see standalone. But if I get a certain advantage in taxes, monthly taxes, or whatever, that from the government arrive, probably I can buy the car. I mean, these kind of new technologies, if we want to introduce, has to be very well regulated by controlling the data, privacy aspect, GDPR, you know better than me, this aspect, plus economic advantages. Because there is for sure extra cost for producer that then you have to put on the product. So this is something that probably has to be involved or pushed by the policymaker. And concluding, during COVID, we have done a way to clean the FFP2 mask from COVID. We have done this project with Fire Brigade in Italy and Politecnico and Sacco, that is a very important hospital in Milano for pandemic emergency. And in this aspect, RFID can help. But the problem in that case, we are trying to replicate what is done for the laundry. But the issue is that one aspect is to have a shirt clean. The other aspect is to be sure to have a mask clean. So also in terms of sustainability, probably it's for the disposable. It's quite difficult for the hospitals to create a protocol that I am sure that my mask is really my mask. To make a disposable mask reusable, it's a little bit complex in terms of procedure internally. What we are using these technologies, we are using to clean the mask and to clean the mask and recycle it as plastic. So we are making a circular economy. We are trying to make a circular economy. For that, starting to this kind of project to clean the mask. But again, this project was a little bit more complex, but the other two projects, RFID and electronic valve with IoT sensor, are interesting for the industry. What is the issue? Again, regulation, data, and incentive that are probably something that is important to discuss.
Thank you, Pierpaolo. I guess you're over. I think that was a very good testimony of how we have SMEs in Europe who are really innovative and looking at placing on the market really new products that address different challenges, sustainability, technology, tracking. and so on, circularity, and so I think it was a very good example. Perhaps before we open to the other participants for more questions, I see that Andreas already has one, but I will keep that on hold for the moment. I wanted to go back to Ivan from the European Commission to see if you have any immediate reactions to the stories you heard from Jorg and from Pierpaolo of what could be done, to put everything into a European perspective of, creating the right mix, I will say, of stick and carrot, regulation, new requirements, but also incentives. Because I think we need a sort of industrial strategy somehow, no? If we really want to help our SMEs to be more sustainable, to be more resilient, to be more technological, and so on and so forth. So, yes, it's easy to put more requirements in new regulation, relatively easy, so to say, but we need to create the right, conditions for the companies to do so. So, even your reflections, please.
Yeah, no, I'm very happy to hear many things here. I have to say, for example, the evolution of the standardization of the management of data that Joak indicated, I think it is very useful for, as you said, for the digital product passport and for all the data that currently manufacturers, as the legal manufacturers in the EU are considered, has to deal with, because the manufacturer is the person that places the product on the market under his own brand. So they need to really they will be the responsible against the law in the EU to take all these things into account. So if they have a regional manufacturer of the product, they need to ask for this kind of information that Jörg was indicating. What were all this process for the materials that you use for the product and everything. So it's good to have it standardized. It's good to have it centralized in a certain place. And when using these standards, manufacturers that will place the products on the market will have, if the original manufacturers are using this kind of standards, or manufacturers placing the product on the market in the EU will have this certainty that they will have this data available. Okay, and it will be a sort of certification for them, or confirmation that it's a certified supplier. It's a safe original manufacturer that I'm using for my product in the EU. On the other side, I heard also about incentives. So there are some funding programs in the EU that also give some help for new projects, like maybe the ones that Pierre was saying. I'm not sure right now if there is a specific program for the specific products that they were saying, but there are programs that incentivize and fund projects which are related to these Commission initiatives, like the digitalization or sustainability or green transition. Okay, so and let me share the website, because there is a centralized website in the Europa website where you can find the funding opportunities there. So then it is a matter of finding, which might be not easier. But in this link, it's a centralized point where you can find all the funding opportunities in the EU. So maybe you're lucky and you have one project, one funding opportunity that your project fits, and you can ask for some money there. But yeah, so this more or less, I think. Let me see. Yeah, you mentioned also, sorry, about the market surveillance of the products in the market. Yeah, there was indeed an issue of the during the pandemic. Well, it has been always been difficult, the control of the products, because it requires a lot of resources. You know that the control of the products on the market are under the control of the national authorities, not the European Commission that does this control. It's the national authorities that control the products on the market. And in this sense, I can confirm that during the pandemic, the amount of masks and gloves and products that arrived in the market was incredibly high. There was we have recently
People don't know.
the commission in last year, I think it was, did a study during the pandemic about the non-compliance of these products, these COVID-related products on the market, and indeed we found a lot of products that regrettably were not non-compliant, and most notably masks. Okay, I can tell you that I have been requested for every day during the peak of the pandemic. I was dealing with these issues all the time. Market surveillance authorities or manufacturers or users saying, "Are these masks okay?" That is not my function to say to if a mask is okay or not, but I could perceive the problem of the market with this amount of requests that we received. There is a portal in the Europa website also called Safety Gate. It's for RAPEX notification. It's for the safety of the products, where normally the products can be or notified there. So if there is any non-compliant product in the market, and the national authorities notify that this product exists, they notify through this system, and it's available to the public. The easiest way to find or to indicate about this, if you are aware of any product, you need to indicate this, that there is a possible non-compliance of products to your national authority. So there is also a link of all the national authorities dealing with the different products on the market for the different countries, where you can find an email where you can contact them. I did myself that during the pandemic for some masks that I found. I was not even I'm the desk officer for PP. I don't have the power to say, hey, this mask is not good. So I send this request to my national authority. In that case, I remember doing it in Spain, where I come from, and saying, hey, I found this mask that may not be compliant. Please take all the necessary measures. So that's the case. But it's true that the resources are limited, and when such an amount of products as during the pandemic appeared, and moreover, taking into account the lack of these products by in the different countries, people, well, there was some mistakes and some lessons learned to be taken there, and the people and authorities or manufacturers may have missed some points when importing this kind of products. So yeah, but there are some there are there is a process to deal with this kind of products. Many people doesn't know, also have to say, but well, that's
thank you.
To be
Perhaps,
honest,
yes,
was not a complaint.
Pierpaolo, yes, your experience with the conformity.
Was not a complaint. Yeah, was not a complaint from my side against the rules, because I understand that totally. Well, COVID was. We were the unique company in Italy during COVID, and we were in Milano. So the COVID arrived in Bergamo, or Lodi and Bergamo. So we were here. We were there. So it was absolutely impossible, and we really fight. We really need to negotiate with the Italian government also to avoid the army arrives in our company. So it was really, really challenging aspect at that time. But what I feel was that, and even probably leave yourself on the other side of the table, and it was, I mean, there was a completely lack of information, absolutely no any know-how about PPE from the authorities. I'm talking about Italy, but also, I mean, it was not an aspect that was so strong in Europe. And this was a tornado, a thunderstorm that arrived, impossible to be managed. And what now is happening, to be honest, I'm a little bit worried, because there are some countries like North Europe that are already starting. North Europe, may I say, some Scandinavian countries, Irish, Ireland, that are starting to put product on stock, very well controlled. So they are asking test report. We got an audit specifically from the Ministry of Health, and they take our product from the production. They went in some notified body, listed and clear, sure notified body, and they start to test it before receiving the product. They test it to be sure that that batch is okay. So there are some countries that are going in the right direction to prevent any kind of future events, and there are some countries, and unfortunately Italy is in this aspect, also Spain a bit, are still okay. We have product from the pandemic, bad product, we keep in stock without controlling any condition, and a disposable mask with a lot of humidity or hot is completely, from P2 is becoming zero. So there are some aspects that we are learning. Some countries are learning from COVID, some others not so much. And probably from the authorities in Europe, an organization more like, I cannot say the organization to control the drugs, so the EMA, but something similar could be a way, because PPE are not easy. PPE can preserve and need to be more controlled. Unfortunately, I understand that that was impossible during COVID, but probably we have to increase this kind of aspect. Just to clarify, Ivan, was only to clarify that was not a complaint, but only to transmit what we live.
Yeah, regrettably, I see that there is a lack of sometimes. To be clear, so national authorities meet talk with regards to PP, are in charge of PP, meet in the PP expert group at least once a year, where we discuss. It's led by my head of unit. I'm there also organizing everything. So we discuss all the topics in these meetings where all the member states are. So it's true that resources in public administrations are limited. So I guess that at some point, when scaling down the information that they receive in the PP expert group, there is some gaps there, I guess, because it's true. But my experience for what I saw also in the news, because I don't have access to anything. So for what I saw in the news in Spain, also there was some local authorities that bought PPE that they were not compliant. So there is, of course, this lack of awareness of the regulation in some points, but I hope that this will be a lesson learned. I cannot, of course, say that it will be improved anytime soon. And there are, as you said, Pierpaolo, that many countries are doing better than others. And I hope that we could all catch up and really be aware of what we are, of all the product legislation in the market. But yeah,
okay,
there are some things to be improved. In any case, market member states meet at least once a year, or if not twice, for this kind of PPE expert group, where we try to discuss the ongoing topics on PPE.
Thank you, Ivan. I think I would like, because we have a few minutes before we have to end this panel, I would like to invite again everyone in the participants to ask their questions if they have. Using the chat, you can write either your question there, or if you want to take the floor, you write raised hand. For the moment,
I see there is a question from Andreas to me.
There was a question from Andreas, and there is another question for you, Ivan, but you can probably reply in writing, because this is from Luis Friedrichs, and to be faster, we can do it just there. There was a comment from Neely Ledevic about RABC standards that ensure hygiene, but I think we can just take note of that comment unless she wants to ask a question. I see that there is a question from Andreas. So Andreas, perhaps you can voice your question now.
Yes, thank you, Sebastiano. I was just wondering, Ivan, because you said in your first presentation, you said that regarding the horizontal regulations that are coming up, and that which will also affect the PPE products and other products as well, medical device products and other products. You mentioned that the PPE regulation will still be the main piece of regulation for PPE products, but that there will be delegated acts to include the requirements of these horizontal
in this case.
Yeah, for example, horizontal regulation, Data Act or whatever. My question would be, what would that actually mean for the standards? Because we all know PPE products are actually have to show their conformity via harmonized standards that are harmonized with the regulation. So then we will have the delegated acts. What would that mean for the standards? Would there be standards or the existing standards, harmonized standards, be reworked or revised in order to include the requirements coming from these delegated acts? Or would there be new standards that would be developed for each product category, and then products have to show also conformity with these new standards referring to delegated acts? This will be quite an issue for the standardization community, because people that work on standards know what I'm talking about. If they have to develop other standards with regard to delegated acts coming up, how would the process be? How do we find the expertise that actually people knowing how to make these requirements harmonized with the delegated acts and also harmonized with the PPE regulation as well? So that would be quite a challenge for the standardization community.
Yeah. So it is not possible to generalize in this question. It should be seen on a case-by-case basis, depending on the product and the different components of the product. Not all the horizontal legislation need to have a delegated act. So I was mentioning this with regard to the eco-design regulation in this case. The eco-design regulation cannot impose any requirements as it is on top of the product legislation. So it is, but this is specific for the eco-design regulation. So the delegated act for any additional requirements on products with existing product legislation need to be drafted and adopted in advance. So in this sense, it's for the sustainability of the products, in this case, the eco-design regulation. So as I said, currently the CEN is including in the technical committees this perspective of the standardization about the sustainability aspects of PPE. So the requirements that will appear in a future delegated act, which we have not even started to draft. So far there will not be such a requirement as of today for the sustainability, but if we advance in the standards, it's the better, because it will help us to comply with future regulation in this sense. So any requirement of the delegated act will need to be in line with the regulation itself. So with regards to the others, so for example, the AI Act, so any AI systems will need to comply itself with the AI requirements, so separately, because in principle there will be a separate system and will not be included, will be part of the PPE in a future possible PPE case for AI, but this AI system will need to comply with the AI regulation, and the whole of the PPE will need to be verified that it's safe. The addition of this component, but with regards to the expertise, I understand and I know from Sen the difficulties of finding these experts on many fields and during the for the elaboration of the standards. Hopefully, and I cannot say what are the different member states doing in this regard. This need to be also addressed and promoted, and the more that we talk about the future needs of the expertise in the different for the future products, the more the countries will invest in the education of their citizens for this kind of expertise. But it needs to be highlighted. It needs to be discussed in the different fora, and so the different and the relevant authorities take care and foster this kind of knowledge in their education systems.
Okay, thank you, Ivan. I see that okay, for the moment there are no more questions, so I'd like to go towards the conclusion. But we still have a few minutes if anyone has another burning question. And so to conclude, I just wanted to ask the three of you to give me your very last statement, the message that you would like to be retained out of our conversation. What is the most important thing that you think we should remember? So perhaps start with Jörg.
Sorry. So for me, my main point is there are given standards of identifying and communication. And there might be a misunderstanding. We do not need a big global database. All the players on the market have their databases, their EPCIS databases with their data, the producing level, the dealer level, and the user level. And all they are linked. And we need open data communication and information, and not a closed one where nobody can share with. And the communication to the standards and to the regulations, and the possibility of check if the products fits the regulation with the data which is open available, that must be given in the future.
Okay, thank you, Ivan. Thank you, Jörg. Perhaps I go back to Ivan with his last comment, also trying perhaps to answer the question that we have received. I don't know if you see it, by Lucia Medori, who's asking if PPE be considered as a standing alone product category in the Eco Design Delegated Act. It's a question about the future. And also, don't forget, sorry, before to reply in writing to Luis Friedrichs, who asked about the non-compliant PPE study. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sebastiano. So answering to Lucia, so the EU the eco-design regulation that does not impose requirements itself for other product-specific legislation. PPE is a standing alone product-specific legislation, so they will need to have a delegated act to include requirements. I would need to speak under the control of my colleague dealing with the eco-design proposal, but which is not here. Who is not here, but as it is written right now, the proposal, there should be a standing alone delegated act for PPE to add
what about
additional requirements for eco-design. Yep.
Andrea is also asking about textile, and Andrea Rechsteiner on the same topic, if they are a standalone.
No, the textiles are not standing alone. The standing alone product-specific legislation is the one that you have seen in the first link that I shared with you. You could see there the product groups for CE marking. Okay, these are the union harmonization legislation, which is under the NLF, the new legislative framework. The textiles are components that can be also affect many different product categories. Okay, but in principle, the essential health and safety requirements for the products are indicated in these product groups that appear in the link that I shared. And textiles are not there. Textiles is also a horizontal legislation.
Okay, thank you, Ivan. I see that
Okay.
we are. Do you have a final thing?
I finished with the last statement. So do not miss the first point of the CE marking. Identify the applicable directives and harmonize standards, and do not leave it to others to do it unless it is a consultant that you have hired to do this. First, identify the applicable. First, think of the use that you will give to your product. Think about the components that this product has, and identify the applicable directives. If you cannot do it alone, find the help with a legal consultant specialized in product compliance, because it's the first step to do. Do not leave it on the hands of the notified bodies. Do not leave it on the hands of importers or whatever. So because you, the manufacturer, that is placing the product on the market, is the responsible for this. So do this, and that's the most important thing.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
All okay. You know what? The message was loud and clear. Last maybe 30 seconds to Pier Paolo, because then we really have to conclude this panel.
I lost you, Sebastiano.
No, Pier Paolo, you have
noise.
30 seconds for if you have a last statement. Otherwise, we will close this panel.
No. Well, again, I underline probably that the innovative product in safety, the industries or the companies like us are trying to innovate the IoT and the multi-use, as the title of this forum is an opportunity for sure. The aspect to support even big or small companies, but to manage the privacy aspect related to the data, this is something that has to be supported. If not, the risk is that I feel, for example, we are testing this product in some big car industries. The car industries, especially in Italy, the unions are very strong, and if you have a very good product, but then the end users don't want to risk to test because there is too many aspects related to privacy, could be a risk in terms of limited innovation. And this is probably one aspect that is important to again underline, because could be good solution that support, but in the consumer business, something is more easy to be managed. In the industry, it's more difficult. So that is only the thing that I want to underline.
Okay. Thank you, Pierpaolo. With this, I think I would like to thank all the three speakers and the participants who engage in the discussion. We taken a couple of minutes of break because Omar has to prepare the second panel. Before that, Omar, you wanted to communicate something, so you can take the floor, and then we resume in 2 minutes.
Thank you, Sebastiano. Yes, just a quick announcement to save the date on 21st of November for an SBS webinar on standardization for smart textile, and I think we can connect it well to the discussion of today's forum. So on the 21st of November, we will have two presenters from the SEN working group on smart textile, Karen Offinger and Jan Olaf Kuntz, who will present the latest standardization for smart textile and how it also affects SMEs. So this is a kind request to save the date. In about a few days, we will send you an official invitation with a registration link to register for that webinar. Andreas, to you, would a break of 5 minutes be good? We should have started now at 11:30, but I think we can give our audience a break for 5 minutes to refresh. So we start at 11:35-36. That's okay with you?
Okay, yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
Fine.
So thank you for the first panel, and we see you at 11:35.
Thank you, everybody. I have to leave. I will not stay for the second panel. I need other things to do. But thank you very much for organizing this SBS.
Ivan, you are muted if you are talking.
Did you hear me?
Bye.
Do you hear me?
No.
Yeah.
So, Ivan, Pierpaolo, and Jorg, I will take you out from the panel, but if you want to stay and follow the forum, you will be able to. Okay.
Hello.
No, I was muted. Now I hope you can hear me.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Massimo. I can hear you.
Okay, good.
Can we hear Edith and Solange as well?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
It's
Thank you,
Edith.
Edith. Yes. And Solange, you are still muted.
Okay, Solange, I can see you now. Thank you for joining. And I think we are ready. Let me just get Sebastiano out of this stream. Yes. I will put also back the, maybe it's like this. Okay. Okay, Andreas, the floor
Good morning.
is yours.
Just checking
You
my
can start in a minute.
audio. Can you all hear me?
Yes, Solange, we can hear you. Thank you. Good to have you here. Yes, Omar, we are fine, actually.
Good morning. Here's Solange Blaskowski. Can somebody just confirm that you can hear me, please?
Yes, we can hear you. Can you hear us?
This is Massimo Vanetti. I can hear you. I confirm.
Okay, fantastic. It's kind of worrying whether
you couldn't hear me.
Okay, thank you.
So, can people hear me, by the way?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, good. Omar, you give me a sign if we are online again and if I can start, please.
Yeah, we are online. You can start.
Oh, thank you, Omar. So welcome back after this short break. Happy to have you all here still. We will have the second session now, and the second session we have heard about lots of new regulations coming up. And we already sort of touched upon that this will also mean we will have to look into standards that actually go with these new regulations. And we will be looking at the second session into skills and competencies we will need to be as on the one side from the standardization community and the other side from the SMEs themselves. So we will have 3 speakers again in this third session, and let me introduce to our 3 speakers from this session, please. We have first Solange Blaskowski. I hope is the right way to pronounce your name, Solange, from Sabe Technical Group and in Sensenelec. She is working at Philips in Netherlands, and she is also holds the convenership of some of the Sensenelec technical standardization groups. Welcome to you, Solange. We also have Edith Klaassen. Dr. Edith Klaassen, she's a chemist and environmental scientist. She's working for Hohenstein Institute and has quite a long experience with standardization, also and especially in PPE. She's also the chair of the sustainability working group in the Sensenelec PPE Sector Forum. So welcome, Edith, as well. And last but not least, we have Massimo Vanetti. He's an ICT engineer with wide experience in the application of ICT technologies. And he's also working for quite some years in the standardization area, also as an SBS expert. And he's also the convener of the SBS Working Group Digitalization. So we have people from different backgrounds, and I think this helped, but also with quite some experience in standardization. So I think this will help us all to bring in all the cross-sectoral knowledge that we need and talk about the skills that we will need in the upcoming standardization work. So Solange, may I ask you if you want to start with your opening statement? Solange, can you hear us?
I think she's muted.
Yes. Solange, can you hear us? No. Omar, can somebody else say something? Maybe she cannot hear me.
Solange, can you hear us? I think
no.
No. Maybe we start with Edith, Andreas, until she.
Or we can send the message in chat.
Yes, yes. I'm talking to her right now. We'll solve this, but maybe Edith can start until we.
Yes, maybe Edith. So change of timing, but maybe Edith, you can start with your opening statement. Maybe.
Yeah, hello. I think you can hear me. And
yes, we can. Thank you, Edith.
And I want to share. Have you my presentation, or if not, I would talk without the presentation. I think it's also possible. My name is Edith Klaassen, and I'm working for the Hohenstein Institute. And the Hohenstein Institute are a textile research institute, a test house for textiles, and we have a notified body for PPE. And so we have a lot of experience for textiles and also for PPE. If you see the PPE standardization, the standardization helps to maximize safety, quality, repeatability, and others. And for PPE products, there are a lot of PPE standards, product standards available, and the standards differ depending on the protection. And you have a lot of standards and fields for protection, for example, head protection, respiratory protection, eye and face protection, hearing protection, protective clothing, arms and hand protection, leg and foot protection, and fall protection. And all the standards have requirements, test methods, methods for the care, sometimes aging processes, and give information about labeling, care labeling, in product information. And you have a huge group of PPE products, and you have a huge group of product standards, and it's not easy to give the same information in the standards. It's very different standards. On the other ways, we have the product standards for the PPE, and there are also other documents on SAN level, and that are the so-called SUCAM documents. SUCAMs means selection, use, care, and maintenance of the maintenance. And it's a guideline for different PPE. It's available, for example, for head and fire protective clothing, for cold weather protective clothing, and this SUCAM documents give more information how to use and how to select the PPE. Andreas told you already that I am the chair of the PPE Sector Forum Sustainability. The PPE Sector Forum is a group, and this group coordinates the European standardization in the field of personal protective equipment. And this is a platform for exchange of information between the different TCs on PPE. This group don't produce standards. They can only provide guidance on the relevant task groups, but without direct power to enforce application of this guidance. And because the sustainability and all the discussion about eco-design, the PPE Sector Forum established in 2021 the task group sustainability, because yes, there was a need to do this. The first chair of this group was Andrea Rechtscheiner, and I am the second chair of the group. And the work started in this group, and we look to the sustainable aspects from the eco-design sustainable products regulation. That means that we deal with requirements for durability, reliability, reusability, upgradability, reparability, the maintenance and the refurbishment of products, the presence of substances of concern, energy and energy efficiency, recycled content, possibility of remanufacturing and recycling, possibility of recovering of materials, environmental impacts, including carbon and environment footprint, and expected generation of waste materials. And that are a lot of information which must be used to understand all the requirements. And now we try to identify applicable sustainability aspects for PPE. And for PPE, it's if I say PPE, it could not be the same for each PPE. Each PPE must search the and identify the applicable aspects. It would be not the same for all PPE. It's not possible to make a generalization for all PPE products. And it's a question which of the eco-design requirements are applicable or could be implemented for which type of PPE. It's in the moment we are not sure of what we must do and what we have to do. And in the moment we collect and summarize results from other committees and of the information of the textile world and the production world. And in the end, we want to give information to the PPE community for all the sustainable aspects which are important for in the next year for the eco design and the sustainability of products. But we start now, and we will have the one paper and short information I think in the beginning of the next year, and this information will be improved over the next year. It's not a final paper, it's a running paper. And that is my information I will give you before the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Edith. That was quite interesting, especially as we are looking into the PPE products which already have a regulation, and also the aspect of sustainability and eco-design, which is an upcoming regulation. And we see that the people working in the standardization working groups and on the SEN level, on the European level, are already thinking about how they can include these aspects into the standards and for these specific products. This is interesting to hear, and also I think this is something that may be easily relatable to what Solange is wanting to present to us now. Just a question, Solange, can you hear us now?
I'm not completely sure
We can hear you,
whether
Solange.
people can hear me or not.
We can hear you, Solange.
Yes, we can hear you.
I can't hear Andres now. But could you please confirm that you can hear me? So that should work fine. Let me put my presentation in the presentation mode, and in that way, so good morning. I really hope this is coming well at the other side. So my name is Solange Blaskowski. I work for Philips in the Netherlands, and I was invited to this conference or this forum because of my links with Sensenelec Sabe, as I'm this circular economy topic group leader. Just an overview. So before, a few words about SABE and CTG. CTG is the circular economy topic group, as I said, of SABE. And SABE is the strategic advisory board on environment for SEN and Senelec as a whole, for SEN and Senelec BTs. And we interact with many external organizations like the European Commission, with the technical committees throughout SEN and Senelec, but also with internal groups like Forum, groups like yourself, the PPE Forum, as you see here in the figure. The CTG has the task to identify and discuss strategic standardization issues in the field of circular economy, and we also advise the SEN and Senelec governance on actions and priorities, and we coordinate strategy and standardization in the field of circular economy within SEN and Senelec, but also with other SDOs and the European Commission. So it's the objective that we identify gaps. We try to avoid duplications. As we would hear any issue of duplications, we would be instrumental to try to avoid that. So that's our role. We don't develop standards. What we do is develop guidance that is intended for a group of people or standard writers like yourself. So we organize webinars, we organize training, but also we can develop guides, which are documents intended to support the SEN and Senelec standard writers to include aspects like circular economy in their standards. We are a pretty big group. We are over 120 people right now. In CTG, over 30 SEN, 10 Senelec, and 2 SEN Senelec technical committees are represented. Also, almost 20 national bodies are there, and we have also 10 liaison groups. And we have two main activities at plenary level, at group level, that would interest you. So we have half-yearly plenary meetings, normally in March and September, where we discuss the CTG activities, what are the activities done, what are the success achieved. But we also invite policymakers like the European Commission to give us updates of the status of legislation, and the link with the standardization, of course. And very recently, last week, we had one of these meetings where we had, for example, the European Commission presenting about textile strategy, but also the digital product passport and the plans they have to very soon start preparing the new standardization request in support of the digital product passport. We also organize webinars, and these webinars we call them highlights in circular economy standardization. And the intent of these webinars are to share with you experiences from other groups. So what's happening in standardization linked to circular economy that could be used as examples to groups like yourself. Well, a little bit on the circular economy CTG activities. So we have, because we are such a huge group, we needed to create small groups behind to deal with concrete activities. So we have the first one, tracking and analysis, where we have at the very first, it was one of the first activities we started within CTG. We have mapped SAN and SANELAC standards to understand whether the committees at SAN-SANELAC as whole are already addressing circular economy, and if they are not, what is the issue? Do they need support? What is the support they need? What is the thing that we can do to help? And with the working plan that's done in the second group, the activities within CETG have been determined with the main objective really to help SAN and SANELAC committees to address circular economy in their standards. Then one of the things that we heard the most from the members of CETG is that what they needed is clear definitions. Without clear definitions, it's impossible to set up a circular economy. So what we did, and we created a compendium that contains terms and definitions on circular economy coming from all types of standards that are already out there. And this compendium is today available to all CETG members. And we are trying to expand this to the whole of SAN-SANELAC. And the difficulty we are having there is that turns out that terms and definitions in SANELAC are under IP right. So you need to buy the standard to assess the definitions. And this is very different than ISO and IEC. And using that argumentation, we are really pushing CCMC, SAN-SANELAC CCMC, but also BT to have at least as a pilot to have the circular economy terms and definitions available to host SAN-SANELAC. Another thing we heard is that a lot of committees don't know even how to start. They read what circular economy is, but they cannot really grasp what is the implication to their committees. So what we are doing is we are developing training modules that we are going to make available to SAN-SANELAC community as a whole. We are also adapting what's called today the SAN environment framework to expand it to SANELAC because it's today still very much SAN focused. And we also want to include circular economy as a way to mainstreaming circular economy through the SAN and SANELAC community. For example, by a very simple thing, in the agenda template of SAN, they have reference as a standard point linked to environment, and we want to expand that to circular economy. So that's those things that we are doing to help. And then we also are addressing what are the requirements in standards to support compliance with taxonomy legislation. And then last but not least, we are looking beyond SAN-SANELAC, and one of the questions we are trying to get answered today and then start working on that is, does SAN and SANELAC need a committee that is mirrored to the ISO TC 323 on circular economy? First indications show that most TCs think that we should have a committee mirrored to that, but that discussion is started and is an important one as we go forward. And well, one thing that in terms of skills and competences, which are the core of the meeting today, it's important for you to really understand the objectives of the circular economy. So it's today still too much attention, and I see that I should have too much attention is still given to recycling, while design and innovation is really crucial. So in order to achieve a circular economy, you really need to understand well what the core principles are, design out waste and pollution, and keep products and materials in use are really core to your types of business. And you really need to translate that and understand that before you are able to translate into concrete activities. Another aspect is really take into account technology challenges and opportunities. So on one hand, we have, for example, technology convergence, where we have PPE getting together with electronics. You have sensors being embedded in PPE. You have all types of electronics. It means that you're going from a PPE into an maybe electrical electronic product type. And legislation can become a challenge because you need to understand all that. As we have heard many times earlier today, also data availability and traceability is really crucial if you want to address certain aspects of a circular economy, like reuse, like refurbish. But on the other hand, also you have the opportunities, and SMEs are really often the source of breakthrough innovations. And if you want to use your materials well, breakthrough innovations are really the way to make the big step into saving materials. Also try to learn from other groups or industries. Like, for example, this webinar on CTG, it really has the objective to bring to you information on what's happening with other technical committees, how they are implementing circular economy. So take the opportunity for that, really participate, join the webinars, and I would say just be bold and go to these groups to learn even more from them in personal conversations. Determine how your sector can respond to challenges. So what are the things that are meaningful to your sector? Is reusing a challenge because it's of safety? Then make them recyclable. So can maybe not everything be reused, but bits and pieces be reused. So this is the way you start thinking out of the box in order to address your challenges. Expand your horizon. Really engage with new cooperations within your sector, but also beyond your sector. It's really impossible to do circular economy alone. You will need to go beyond your waste, or maybe the waste of your sector might be the resource for another sector. That's why engaging is very important. But also, if we learn from other TCs, we see that most TCs are creating dedicated groups to deal with environmental and circular economy aspects. But I was looking a little bit more in detail about your sector, and it's very, very complex. There are many TCs dealing with PPE, and maybe it's not the solution to create one group per TC, but maybe engage different TCs dealing with the same type of issues and creating a joint working group among several TCs, so that you reduce the burden, the overhead, and you get visions from different perspectives and from different directions. And then last, use existing standards or standardize, create your own standards. And I will go very fast through my last 3 slides. This brings you a list of standards that are helping you to deal with circular economy. I think one of the things we saw today, there is no material flow without information flow. If you don't know what you have in your product, you cannot do anything with that in the future. So it is really important to look what is out there. Is it enough? Can you use what is out there? All the JTC 10 standards, and if you don't know about them, feel free to ask CETG to tell more about these standards. And one thing I want to tell you, for example, this one about material declaration, it talks today, initially it's based on an IEC standard that is there for many years already. It included in the beginning only materials, only substance, going throughout the whole supply chain. So it's a format, it's a way to transfer information through the supply chain. They are now going into an ISO IEC document, so they're expanding to ISO IEC, so very broad scope of products are included there, but they also are going to include aspects important for the circular economy, like use of secondary materials in products and other circular economy aspects, like use of used parts, for example. And we will have next week this webinar, like I told you, the highlights on circular economy. That's next week, Wednesday in the afternoon, CETG webinar. I really invite you to be there and hear a little bit more about this standard amongst two other presentations on furniture and design of fishing gears. Other thing is material economy and material efficiency. They have very difficult principles. People really have trouble to understand them. Also, the business models are really important in order to achieve a circular economy, and supporting all that, you have design. So there are a number of documents that help you to achieve that, and there is one currently under development within JTC 10, with the SEN-SENELEC committee, talking about circular product design. And SABE will have a webinar early next year, so mid-January next year, about it. Then last is about terminology. Just once more, telling you we do have already a terminology compendium available for you. Hopefully we are going to be able to extend that to the whole of SEN and SENELEC. And this is my last slide.
Okay, thank you so much.
I really don't hear.
Sorry. We heard you perfectly well. Maybe Omar, you can get in touch with Solange in order to make her hear us all. But before we dive into the discussion and Solange not hearing us,
I hear that you heard me well, so thank you. I will stop talking and I'll hear if there is some question later. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Maybe we dive into the next presentation of Massimo before we start the discussion, and hopefully we'll have Solange being able to hear us as well. Massimo, I give you the floor now to give your presentation. I think it's more about the aspect, how can other competencies like digital standardization experts, the digital side, also bring some knowledge. Actually, it perfectly well fits to what Solange said. We have to look outside the box if we want to get the standards right, and maybe include expertise and knowledge from other areas out of our own industry. So maybe you bring us some insight in that and some examples from your side. Massimo, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Now I will try and show my slides. I was expecting Omar to do this, but since he has to help Solange, we have to. Okay. As Andreas was saying, I come from a different set of expertise. I work mainly in ICT, IoT, and digitalization. And the presentation will start with a couple of words about the context. Then I will report the experience that we had with the Smart Lifts IoT standardization, and then make some consideration that we can further develop during the panel about the opportunity to proactively engage in the standardization process. Let's start. Okay. The point I wanted to remark from this slide is something that already it was stated in the first half of this presentation, albeit with respect to the concept of data. And now I want to say that IoT, what we call IoT, is not a protocol, not platform. It is not a technical aspect. The key point is sharing the information and its meaning among systems, application, business use sectors, and users. So this complements, I think, what was said in the first half. Now, since we are expecting normative action, we as SMEs are especially exposed to this impact. And we are wondering, because this is the topic of this forum here, if SMEs and standardization experts have the digital skills and knowledge to incorporate the new requirements into standardization and operations. Because once the standardization is set forth, then you have to incorporate into the business operating processes. And if they will acquire new skills, in part, of course, and since many are concerned about that, we will have a look in a real case in which I had direct experience in a different vertical domain, but which shows that it can be done. Okay, I am reporting now the experience we had with the smart lifts IoT standardization. There are a few slides here that I stole from another presentation of mine, but we will gloss over many of them and concentrate mostly on the ones that carry the message. So we are speaking of smart lifts. I think everybody knows what a lift is. Lifts are those things that carry us from floor to floor in building. They are not simply metal boxes, but they are inserted into a wider scenario. Who has business with the smart lifts? With the lifts, actually. People that work with that means a few large companies that we know well, and surprisingly for somebody, lots and lots of SMEs that do mostly with maintenance, but also in design and installation. But also, we must not forget that the largest part of the people who is dealing with this are the users, building managers, and up to a larger scale, us as travelers, and also people with special needs, and so on. This experience delves around the publication, the drafts and publication of FCTS 103735, which has as a scope the smart lift IoT devices, integration of administrative data management and alarm management systems, which are regulated by European norms, by the way, and the scalable cloud service with 1 and 2M. We will see what it is, which is a standard, actually, a global standard. Integration of non-standard solution and platforms, and adding novel features, and so on. All deliverables from Etsy are freely downloadable at this address here. So if you are interested in this document, you go to etsy.org and can download, search and download for the standard. Again, when we speak about IoT and information sharing, And for information interoperation, we are not dealing just with data which comes from devices like measurements and that goes to devices like commands. We speak of all sorts of information, also administrative information and so on, which can be managed as a whole. Okay, why it is important? It is important because it is showing that useful standards under proper circumstances, and we have to stress that, can be developed quickly. And this is particularly true in the case of IoT. SMEs can take the lead in developing modern standards, as they did into this case, and big companies can even appreciate and follow, which happened in this case. And there is a recipe for obtaining these results, and of course, the recipe calls for ingredients. And now we are going to disclose those ingredients. In general, then we shall map those general concepts to the actual cases. In general, what we need people that know well the requirement of their business sector, vertical, that in that case were experts from the field of SMEs. They were designers and maintainers. The best practices that are in use, the technical aspects of their trade, and, this is important, it is not necessary that they are big experts in other areas, like data communication or IoT, because this knowledge is already available and more horizontal. So it can be contributed, as it turned out, Andreas, do you remember, during our preparation session past week. Then we need a standardization context that is open to rapid development, and this is needed to drive the process to success if we want to get it quickly. And then there is we need something that can be leveraged, so that the team that draws the standard can focus on the specific aspects of the vertical business under consideration. In this case, can focus on smart lifts, on lifts actually, and we are making them smarter with this standard, while still keeping the standard able to follow the evolution of technology without impacting directly the specific document. So we leverage other existing standards which provide the foundation of this. This is important because otherwise the task would be too big. Okay, let's now map the case to the various ingredients, concrete ingredients we had. There is this association which is called the FESME, which is the association, the European Federation for Elevators, for SMEs. And they have a federated association at the national level. And one of those was 3Engine, which is a consortium of SMEs operating mainly in Italy, but not only. These were the experts of the vertical domain, as we in ICT tend to call that kind of expertise. Then we had the ETSI TC Smart M2M, which is the TC at ETSI, where historically most IoT standardization has been done. I gather that most of our audience are very, very familiar with SenseNLET. Somebody might have heard of ETSI. ETSI is the third standardization organization that is recognized by the EU, and this is the one that deals mostly with communication, telecommunication, radio, and digitalization, as it is now with the modern digitalization processes. Those boundaries get really blurred. Just for a reference, it is where 3GPP started, actually, and 3GPP is an initiative that is done globally together with all the other continental standardization bodies of the world. Then there is 1M2M, which is a global partnership project for IoT standardization, again started at ETSI 10 years ago, which involves the same actors as 3GPP, so the same actors and the same way of working that is used for mobile phones and so on. And then you need a pinch of luck, and it happened at SBS, and I was instrumental to this, since I happened to hear from FESME representatives that they were willing to have standardization of telemetry for lifts, but things were not moving as fast as they were hoping. So we tried and put together a smart team, and we succeeded in developing this standard very quickly. So we started in June 2020 by publishing the requirements and the feasibility study. And then here you can see that we had already published in March 2021 the technical specification, which is the standard. After that, we started a proof of concept practical project with the participation both of SMEs from the lift side and from TIM, which is a telecom operator. Started working with the integration of SARE, which is the European ontology, and yes, proposing a twin standard for smarting escalator and IoT system. Actually, this is out of slightly out of not anymore correct, since we already published this second standard. And
Massimo, just
yes?
a quick, sorry, so we just quick, we don't have much time left. Can you
okay,
come
but I have finished,
please?
okay.
Because we would have like to have some
okay,
time
yeah.
for the discussion.
I know. I am a chatterbox. These are for people that may want to have a look at what we are speaking. And this is the last topic, which is should we proactively engage into this? My experience is it can be done, and when it has been done, it happened successfully. But there are nuances.
Okay.
And I asked around in this week, and there are cases in which it seems like a good idea, and it seems obviously a good idea when there is the desire raising from within the industry, or in cases that we may call defensive cases, like when normative action is expected soon, and we want to have a say in that, so that what is decided is feasible, and we can manage with some foreseeing. And also when the behavior of large companies may seem to be poisoned. Then there are cases in which one may be in doubt, and essentially is when the normative action is foreseen far away in time. Maybe some people I have seen may consider this as counterproductive. So just to let you know, I made some research of this. I have spoken of just one word. I stressed the point that we need to have industry direct participation. This is absolutely necessary. Then from other branches, help can be gathered. be it at Etsy or at Senelec, it doesn't matter. I checked, but my experience is mostly with Etsy, but I did check, and it turns out that in other cases, joint activities have been done, also between Etsy and Sen at various levels of operativity. And the ones that work well are the ones that are driven by the industry and are technically oriented. So that's it. This was my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Massimo, for that insight from another industry. I think some of the key points, if I may summarize that, some of the key points were that actually you suggest that and gave a good example on how experts and expertise from different sectors and standardization experts from different industries can be brought together in order to develop standards that are useful for the specific products. As your example showed, smart lifts, and that could be easily transferred to smart textiles or smart PPE, where standards have to be developed. So that is actually one of your key arguments. We should open up these standards working groups for people coming from other backgrounds and experts coming from other backgrounds. And actually, this refers very well to what Solange presented, saying we have to be open also to include and gather knowledge and expertise from the side of the sustainability and circularity aspect, and also in order to bring this into specific sector-oriented technical groups and working groups, which is actually coming back to Edith, just trying to bring the circle together here, and Edith struggling in the PPE area with including all the new aspects of sustainability and circularity into that product group without having really already kind of expertise or PPE experts not necessarily have expertise on sustainability or circularity. So this is actually the issue that we are dealing. We have to integrate from regulations coming up, as we said, eco-design, but also IoT, artificial intelligence, Data Act, and so on, all these aspects being integrated into the standards for the products. Maybe one question to you, Solange, and now I guess you are hearing me now, I hope so, and you're smiling, so yes, you're hearing me now. One question I wanted to ask, and I mean, your presentation showed how complex the situation can be just for these aspects of sustainability and circularity in standardization. What do you think, how can the SEN system actually really deal with that kind of complexity? How do you think the level will increase in terms of complexity for the standardization for products?
Wow, that's one thing that we've started to see is that we cannot do things alone anymore. So they are not activities for one TC. We really need to go into the joint TCs, and we saw with JTC 10 one the first. What Senelec need to do is to be open for these changes, and where we are now struggling even to have this compendium of terminology available to everybody because of IPR. So from the Senelec, they need to go over barriers. Because of the complexity, we cannot do things alone. We need to work together, and we need to go even beyond Senelec into ISO and IEC, and work as a big group, certainly on environment and circular economy matters. So if we don't break all the walls, that's going to become a mission impossible. So yeah, that's the only way to do it. That's, I think, my take back. Yeah.
Yeah. So are you confident that I mean, we have quite a let's say an old standardization system. We have Sensenelec, we have ETSI, we have other standardization bodies. Everybody's working on his own, on her own, whatever. But are you confident that we are really able to break down these walls? I mean, Massimo just showed another example. What could be possible if we not look into the barriers, but look into what can experts from different fields bring together and develop together. So are you confident that knowing the system of Sen and Senelec that this might actually happen?
I am confident that as long as we keep shouting, we are going to in some moment be heard. And that's what CETG is doing. And I really invite other groups like the PPE Forum and yourselves, the different TCs, to help us in this battle, to show to the management of Sensenelec that doing business alone is not possible. We've been achieving some victories in the last months, last year. One of them is, for example, all the JTC 10 standards that are essentially Senelec and therefore do not fall under Frankfurt or Vienna agreement. They have been now an agreement within BT that they will be offered to IEC and then also ISO if they want. And that's already the first battle on making standards from European level into international level. And because our supply chains are not in Europe only, they're spread throughout the world. And if we want to do circular economy, we really need to go beyond Europe, beyond to other. So I really have the confidence that we are going to be able to achieve it, but we need to continue pushing. And I think that's what CTG is doing, and we invite you to help us on that battle, please.
Thank you, Solange. And maybe I can come to Edith now, because I think that is fits perfectly well what Edith is actually working on with her working group on circularity and sustainability in PPE, and she showed us what has been discussed, what the working group is thinking about, maybe a guidance also for the other working groups in the PPE, and we have quite complex and a number of working groups on PPE. Edith, what do you think? Would you, from your experience in working on sustainability and circularity in PPE, would you, from your experience, like to have help from external, let's say external experts that have more knowledge about circularity aspects, sustainability aspects, bringing these into the working group that you are in with your PPE experts? Is that something that you're struggling with, or do you think you are quite fine just with the help of some definitions given by Sensenelec, by the Saber Group? What is your view on that? How could the standards be worked on?
I think the work can only do with other experts with special knowledge, and we in the moment we need more the networking between different skills, and that is what in the moment the groups are working, the standardization groups are working on a different product. And some experts can help other groups, but the connection is in the moment not really there. But I think we are thinking more circularity in circularity, and also the standardization must more work, how I can give the information into another group and how the information can flow. And because there is so much information in the web and by the expert, but not all information is always needed. Sometimes you need only a special information, and that must be collected and compressed, and it must be possible to give special information that you can do something. In the moment, the information are struggling you, and you are thinking, oh, what? How can I start with the work?
Yes, thank you, Edith. I think that gives a good impression on what's going on, and that some of the working groups in standardization working groups are quite struggling with all the cross-sectoral topics that are coming in, especially with all the regulations coming up. And maybe that is something that I want to also refer to from the SME side and view on that all. I mean, we have in the first session discussed all the new regulations coming on. What does that mean? Showing conformity with all the new regulations will be quite a more a higher burden for the SMEs. And what do you think? How can we make sure with the standards to that SMEs and products of these SMEs can actually easier fulfill all the requirements coming up with all the regulations? What would be your view? How can SMEs do that? And maybe that is a question that I would actually address to all three of you, because that is quite an important point of view and for the future and the future of the SMEs in all these product categories. Maybe you start with Massimo.
Well, I had to.
How can digital support SMEs to actually confirm with standards, the upcoming standards?
Well, there are several ways, and one is to have the standards, but you have then to explain the SMEs how to use them. So this is a sort of bridge. We usually speak about bridging the gaps for standardization and so on, but there is a gap between the understanding of standards and what they mean and how they can be used by the companies. Even if the standard is freely available, still there is a cultural gap from the user's perspective. This is something I debated with them at other times, saying I was saying that perhaps a companion document that is a sort of guide in how to implement the standard may be helpful for the SMEs, given that they are not versed into that. Not all the people that do standardization work are open directly to this proposal. I think there is
Thank you. Yeah, there's still work to do. Yeah, Solange, maybe you can have a view on that.
Well, one thing that I think that is very much useful is that you don't need to start standards from scratch. There are many horizontal standards out there that can give you a very good start point for you to develop then your product standards. You just need to know they are there. And that's very often that people are not aware what are all the horizontal standards for you to build upon. Another thing is these horizontal standards, they are developed by a cross-sectorial group. So you should be there as well, defending the perspective of the SMEs. So if we take certain decisions, and we are now developing this new standard on circular product design in JTC 10, we are putting things in there that they might be difficult for an SME to achieve, but we need to have that input. If you're not there helping us, giving that input, it might not be addressed. And then it becomes, like Massimo says, people don't know how to use it because it's a little bit higher in terms of too complex or too, I don't know, too difficult to understand. Another thing that we are seeing people do is, at least within the standards of JTC 10, they are creating a type of guidance how to use the standards, and that's an important thing I think as well. So thank you.
If I may intervene just for a word, two things. First, exactly, Solange, this is what we did in the case of the smart lifts we built using other standards as a foundation. And this is most important. And yes, the second part is, okay, I'm too old. Is sleeping my mind. No, the second part that you were saying is something very interesting, and I forgot it. Okay.
Don't worry, Massimo. Maybe we can also open up the floor for the participants here and come up with some questions, because I'm bombarding you with some questions, and I want to hear from the participants if there are any questions to our speakers. Maybe it's been quite silent, so please, people, if and participants, if you have questions to our speakers, feel free to raise your hand or post them in the chat. Yes, and maybe again coming back to Edith, and maybe answer also the question, or a specific question, also looking again into PPE, which we are discussing here right now. There is also the issue, first developing the standards with who actually can then enable the SMEs to be conform with the regulation. That is one aspect, but also we might not forget that when you have a regulation, you will also need a notified body that actually can show, or that can test the products brought onto the market, to actually check with all the standards that are necessary for that. So, Edith, what is your view when the PPE standards would be changed also into standards including sustainability or other aspects? Would that be easy for notified bodies? What kind of skills and competences we need to build up there? Because they're also, I think the skills are not there yet, and we need to develop them. What do you think? Because I know you also come from an institution that is also a notified body.
Yes, and notified body has the technical knowledge in the moment. And if there are additional environmental or sustainability aspects necessary, then they must improve their knowledge and must have other experts also in the notified bodies. And that's the same problem with the developing of new standards. That in the moment the expert for sustainability are not really good connected in most of the cases with the PPE sector. And that is a big challenge for us in the moment to bring the knowledge together and to find experts and to find perhaps consultants which can help the standardization process, but also the notified bodies. In the moment, it's a big problem for the future, but we must solve the problem in the next 1, 2, 3 years.
And what would you think is how could the solution look like? I mean, where do we get these expertise? And I know that also in the audience, but with the participants, there are some notified bodies who might be thinking, okay, what do I have to do in order to get these expertise and knowledge into the standard of the notified bodies? What kind of technical expertise will I need for this? For example, if a PPE should also be checked about the possibility of being recyclable or repairable, would that be something that a notified body can actually check?
In principle, yes. If there is a knowledge about recycling, then it will be possible. But in the moment, I guess that most of the standardization bodies have not the knowledge about the circular aspects. But I think in the circular economy is not it's a new aspect, but if you look in the scientific world, the circular economy is one topic, and I think there will be experts will coming in the next year on the market with the knowledge of the sustainable aspects. And they can support notified bodies.
Mm-hmm. Solange, what do you think on this kind of knowledge and skills gap that we have at the moment with standardization experts, but also with, as we said, just notified bodies, and then obviously also with the SMEs that actually bring the products into the market?
Well, one thing that we see is that not every standard will lead to a link to a conformity assessment. Only the so-called harmonized standards would ask for that. And normally when you have a harmonized standard, there is so much fuse around, there is so much discussion that normally people will understand. And of course, the nitty-gritty details sometimes are not understood. Like, for example, going back into many years ago with ROS, the restriction of hazardous substances, what the hell is a homogeneous material? How do I test it? Yeah. So this type of things can and need to be clarified with the legislators, after all, so that the conformity assessment bodies can do their work. Absolutely. But at the end of the day, I think it's all the majority of the standards we are developing today or will develop in the next years around circular economy. They are not linked to a conformity assessment. It's maybe many of them are really being proactive and embedding all the issues around circular economy and sustainability, because not because there is a legislation telling, and if you don't do it, you're not compliant, but maybe trying to avoid legislation and doing it proactively already, so that you can maybe avoid legislation in the future. And I think that the gap knowledge, by developing the standard, we really learn a lot, and we develop that knowledge that sometimes we are missing. Standardization is really helpful because it really breaks through the whole, the whole elephant that is extremely complex. It breaks into pieces, and people start understanding better how to deal with it. So I think that that can help. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, sure. Thank you for that, Solange. I see that Henrik Bayer, and he is actually from a notified body, has asked a question. Henrik, do you want to take the floor on that, or shall I read the question to all? Henrik? No? Okay, maybe I can address the question. He's writing, "Dear all, from your point of view as experts, how sustainable can a smart garment full of electric and electronics be?" Quite a good question. Thank you for that, Henrik. Yes, that is a key, and it touches already upon actually three pieces of legislation, because we have smart textiles, we have sustainability, and we have a PPE regulation. So that is actually one of the key aspects, and that is what I wanted also to say to you, Solange. We are already in a product category which is regulated, which has to show conformity. We are discussing some of the products actually are not only used as PPE but also medical devices, and then being maybe smart and electronic and being sustainable. So a whole lot of number of regulations will be coming up for these products, and maybe that makes it easier to understand that SMEs that are active in these businesses have quite a challenge. So yes, it's good working on the standards, but what do you think? What do you say to those SMEs that are actually in that kind of business and have to look into different kinds of regulations?
So I'm not completely sure to whom you addressed the question, but just addressing
to
the
you,
question,
Solange.
oh, it was to me. Okay. So how sustainable can a smart garment full electronics be? Well, one beautiful thing about that we are talking here is with convergence of technologies, that we are limiting, or we are combining many functions. In the past, we would need to have 3-4 different products to do the work that today we can do with a simple garment maybe. So in terms of materials perspective, and I'm still focusing on the circular economy, yeah, from the materials perspective, we are really, if we are able to combine functions, it means we are decreasing the amount of materials necessary to deliver all that separate answers. So yes, if we are able to reuse them, to maintain that in use very long, those are the things that we want to achieve to become sustainable. We are not going to, the function will not disappear. We need them. So the way to look into that, how can I combine smartly all those things in the garment so that maybe later on when I want to reuse, I can, for example, electronics has a certain limited time of period of life. That might be different than the garment itself. So you're going to need to assess the reliability of the different parts of it and see, can I then repair it? Can I replace? Can I upgrade it? So if I'm able to do all that, then I'm being sustainable, yes. And the use of it, I mean, ideally, we wouldn't need to use anything, yeah? Because then we don't make any impact on the environment, but it's not the case. I mean, we are living, we need to use them. And I think that's a way to do it.
Thank you, Solange. Maybe Edith, a view from you on that issue of the PPE being under several regulations that might come up, or for different uses as well.
Yes, I think it's PPE must be is a safety product. That is the importance aspect, and then it's the question if the PPE is a smart garment, then it's a question, is the smart garment sustainable or not? And here we have no criteria to measure the sustainability. And I think that is one point we must do in the next year. It's a question. It's a PPE more sustainable if there is in a long term use, or with smart textiles, with more material inside, or is this more sustainable if a PPE is only with low parts inside and no smart textile, but gives not so a high safety. And I think here we need criteria for indexes to measure it, to compare products.
Yeah.
But that is a question for the next time. It's an open question in the moment.
Yeah, and it's also a question of skills and competencies. If we have the people not also in standardization, but also in the SMEs, to actually being able to gather all that information necessary for their products. And then we are coming, maybe just one question also to our guest from the data side. And we've heard in the first session also, it is able to collect all these data and to drive this into a kind of a digital product passport, not only the aspects of sustainability and circularity, but also maybe other aspects from other kinds of regulation. So Massimo, maybe because you are coming from the IT side, what do you think?
But my point of view is actually more low level. If we are speaking of things like smart garments and so on, by the way, my image comes and goes. I hope you can hear me well.
Yes.
There is even the problem of educating the public at large. How do I dispose of such a garment? Because not only the electronic does have a limited life, but also the textile itself has a limited life. So they were out, and where do I put it? In which bin? Who is going to sort out the good parts from the old parts that we at least know how to handle? So it is even more basic, not just fancy looking into database and so on, because this is where a lot of the garbage goes. And if I may take this to piggyback and ask for forgiveness for my previous blunder. Yes, the point is, you are right, Solange. Companies should join those committees, and some of them do. Most of them are very big companies that are entire department devoted to that. This is one of the things that separates SMEs from other companies. It is not just a matter of money. It is the matter that key people are hard to detach for significant time from the production environment in the company. There are companies that are able to do that, but there are not that many. It depends on their business and their business model. This is one of the reasons of the existence of an X3 organization like SBS or other SMEs associations. We have plenty of them here, like Digital SME and other people here. So I think it is the role of an association to act as a link between those two things. Very few SMEs on their own can join that process. Even if they...
Maybe Solange, you...
Yeah, I just wanted to make a note that absolutely what I want to say, that's the role of the forum, the PPE forum and the SBS forum. Really make yourselves heard in the standardization community. You are there already, you are member. Influence, take the opportunity to influence the groups that are developing standards. So I think I really understand that SMEs don't have the capacity, that they don't have even the time to participate everywhere. One thing that is good as well is that big companies will have that pioneering activity. They quite often are the first ones to try and fail sometimes, and maybe also engaging in a discussion with them in an industrial association. That's also an important way to get our voices heard and to get our needs heard and understood by the other organizations that are in the front running of developing these standards.
Thank you for that, Solange. So any final, I think we want to sum up now and come to the final conclusions. Maybe all the three of you, as Sebastiano did in the first session, I give you a couple of seconds, like 30 seconds for your final statement, and then we sort of round up all the session, the discussion. Maybe start with you, Edith. You're on top of my screen.
Okay. I think we are at a point that the PPE standardization needs more knowledge and more aspects, for example, for smart textiles or also for sustainability. And in the next year, there will be some changes and we have a lot of work to do. But I think the work can be done if we work together and see in other areas of industry and connect together and work together.
Thank you, Edith. Solange, your turn.
Well, my message to you is also a message I gave a couple of weeks ago in another webinar. Be proactive. Don't wait for legislation. Really try to see what you can do within your capability. Make use of your strong capacity to innovate and be proactive, not only in the technology that will solve the issues around circular economy, but also the standardization aspects and then the legislation. Try to, with your innovation, bring the legislation to a certain direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Solange. And last but not least, Massimo.
Okay, thank you. As one that comes from outside this domain, from ICT, ICT is an enabling technology. So it is part of the foundations that Solange was mentioning, taken as a technology. Then there are standards and so on. So yes, but joining forces is important. It can be done. It has been done with success, in this case and in many others. Just please remember that it is a process that has to be managed. It doesn't happen by itself. You need the right people and somebody in the middle that can mix and steer together correctly the recipe, as I was saying. So there is people that can act and translate between the various languages and jargons and the mindset that the various people coming from different experiences do have.
Thank you, Massimo. I think that is quite a good word for the end now of that session, because we need cross-sectoral thinking. We need to get expertise from not only our own industry, but also other industries, if we want to actually be able to face this challenge of different especially horizontal requirements that will be coming up, be it sustainability, circularity, or digital aspects, data protection, and so on, all the things that might go into our products, and we have to deal with. So maybe that's the point, and thank you again to the three speakers for your presentations and for the discussion. And I think, Omar, I was asked to, instead of Sebastiano, to close this event, and we are already, time-wise, we are already at the end. Just maybe some closing remarks from my side. I think it was very helpful to have this event here, in order to hear about, okay, what is coming up, what kind of legislation will be coming up, and in what way, we heard from Ivan, in what way the Commission is actually planning to implement this regulation and how this might affect the PPE sector. The second one for me, I think important message is also, yes, we are still mainly looking into our sector PPE and the PPE regulation, and that the Commission will work on pieces of legislation to implement these cross-sectoral requirements, but also looking into standardization. There is already lots of things available, as Solange showed us. There are standards that might help standardization working groups to implement and to work on their own standards and implement things and taking from these, and also help from Senelec and other organizations, as well as the associations, to work on these standards and revise them in terms of the new requirements. But also that we all need skills. The standardization organizations will need skills and expertise for that. The notified bodies will need skills and expertise to actually do their work and get on board these new requirements, and especially the challenges for the SMEs that are on the market and that will still have to get conformity also with the new requirements. So there is a lot of challenges being ahead, but also a lot of work is already done on all these issues, and we heard about that also from the digital side. So I think it's quite a long way to go. We need the activity of SME experts in standardization and of the associations being part of the regulation. And I hope that a lot of members and also associations will be working on these new issues. So that would be my kind of thoughts about what we heard today. I'm happy to hear any other comments and also feedback from all of the participants today. A big thank you for all the participants out there and also those who have been joining the discussion with their questions. Thanks a lot for all again to all the speakers that we had today. Thanks for organizing and keep with us for the next events. Maybe just one hint on the again, what Omar said, there will be a seminar organized by SBS on smart textiles for the 21st of November, if I'm correct, Omar. And maybe that would be something interesting to join as well. Omar, correct. Are you there?
Yes, that is correct. It's on the 21st of November. We will send soon the invitation and registration link to all participants.
Thank you. And I heard, Omar, just on organizational aspect, the web workshop today, the forum was actually filmed, or you can will people have access to that one? Or
yes, just right. I end the forum now. They will receive an email with a link to rewatch it. Even those participants who left early or couldn't join today, they will leave. They will receive an email after that, and we will also upload it in a couple of days in our YouTube channel, so everyone can see it.
Thank you for that, Omar. So if there aren't any last questions, I would like to thank you all and hope you will have a great day. And thanks for all your discussion and the ideas that come up today. Thank you very much. On behalf of SBS, SME Safety and DTV, the organizers. Thank you very much.
Thanks for organizing the meeting as well. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.